Fake vaccine cards. This is becoming quite a problem here for federal agents and local officials all around the country who have been very, very aggressive in making sure that you get the jab. Now that many people don't want to do that, they're turning to alternative proofs of verification, given the fact that many different cities in this country are now making it mandatory that you're vaccinated. Otherwise, you can't participate in that city. You don't get to go to the bars. You don't get to go to the restaurants. In some cases in New York, you don't even get to go to the grocery store unless you can provide proof of vaccination. We talked about the rules on the show yesterday. And so people are looking elsewhere. We know that freedom is going to always find a way to sort of escape from totalitarian maniacs. And so people are turning to fake vaccine cards. And the feds, who are very much in support of making sure that elected bureaucrats that have no knowledge of your medical history continue to pontificate about you taking a medical shot that is still in experimental status, they are going to support the jab no matter what, because they're the federal government. They fall in line with the rest of everybody else. So federal agents are now seizing thousands of fake COVID vaccine cards that are destined for locations across the U.S. Posted in the Washington Post a couple days ago, bundles of counterfeit coronavirus vaccine cards printed with the CDC logo have been shipped from China. So China sends over the virus and then they send over the fake vaccine cards, going all around the United States as some unvaccinated people try to evade restrictions, which is now, I think, making you a terrorist or something. U.S. Customs and Border Patrol said on Friday that they seized thousands of fake vaccine cards passing through Memphis, a shipping hub, saying that the vaccinations are free and available everywhere. If you don't want to get a vaccine, that's your decision, but don't order a counterfeit card. Waste my officer's time. Can you believe that? Break the law and misrepresent yourself. I always like that line from the police. Don't waste my time with these charges. What are you talking about? You're sitting there handing out speeding tickets all day. You're a Customs and Border Patrol official. You're supposed to look for this stuff. What are you talking about? Okay. So, how about not wasting business owners' time with mandates that they have to apply to their employees and their customers, and then now be enforcing every time somebody comes through the door? How about not wasting our time? How about that? Maybe a good place to start. Here's what they look like. So pretty much looks like a regular vaccination card. They seized thousands of these things as they passed through Memphis. And so, excellent work there, boys and girls at Border Patrol. The agents confiscated 121 packages, 3,000 vaccine cards. Officers realized the cards were fake because the packages were not sent by the CDC. Brilliant. And another medical organization. The forms had errors, including misspellings, unfinished words, and incorrect Spanish translations. So we have a lot of brain power there. Making or buying a counterfeit card violates federal laws. We already talked about that. 5 years in prisons because the FBI is now warning about that. We talked about that last week on the show. As a number of coronavirus cases has swelled again, the spread of variants like Delta in many places have been causing requirements of proof of vaccination in order to go into public spaces. San Francisco did it. New York City did it, and includes requirements for patrons indoors and even gyms. Same thing's going on in Chicago, a Chicago pharmacist now. So those came over from China. China sent the virus, and then China sent over the fake vaccination cards. So now a Chicago pharmacist is also in the game. A pharmacist who works at a pharmacy, which dispatches drugs, that probably has the vaccine, is coming up with fake cards, says that another gentleman by the name of Tang Zhao, don't know if he's from China also, sold 125 official CDC vaccine cards for $10 each. This guy's going to make $1,200 off these fake cards. Works at an unidentified chain. Cards are increasingly important as more businesses now are freaked out. 12 counts of theft of government property during his indictment. Faces 10 years prison on each count. Okay, look at that. 12 counts times 10 years, 120 years, folks. I talked about COVID crimes here. 120 years for $1,200, for $1,250. Okay, so you can do the math on that. Not really worth it. We take seriously and will vigorously investigate any criminal offense, said Attorney General Kenneth Polite. Okay, so that's out of Chicago. Now, they're sort of cracking down on it. And, why is this the case? Well, because they want you to get the vaccine. They don't want you to be able to go and engage in the economy unless you get the vaccine. So New York passes a new law. And so now they've created a very strong incentive to go make sure you get the jab. Now, if you want to do that, you go and do that. And you get to participate in real society again. I'm a real boy again. Yay, this is amazing. And so you get to participate like a New Yorker, like a real New Yorker. Wow. And if you're not vaccinated, you don't. You don't get to go to the grocery store or meet your family at a restaurant or go to a bar or go get a haircut or any of those other things that are now limited. So you might want to identify an alternative. You might be one of the 60 to 70% of African Americans in New York City who just doesn't want to get the vaccine, period. And you, as an American, have a God-given right to deny that request, that demand, that mandate. And so you find an alternative way to go about this so that you can continue to live your life, and they theoretically could charge you with all sorts of different COVID crimes. We've covered many of them. This guy was selling them. This guy's going to get theoretically a couple of years, but maximum, the penalty that he could face, 120 years. Over 125 CDC cards, $10 a piece, $1,200. So you're going to see a lot more of that. FBI is also warning, if you were the person who bought one of these cards, 5 years for you. 120 for him, 5 for you. Why is that? So that they can really push you back into the system. If you're trying to get out of this, if you're trying to escape some of these mandates, by God, that's not going to be allowed. The system has spoken. They're going to nudge you right back in there, and they're going to use the strong arm of the U.S. Justice Department in order to do that. And so it's not over, right? COVID is not over until you start complying, and complying swiftly. This is here to stay. Already talked about this. The CDC extended all of the moratoriums out until October. We know that the student loans have been pushed back to next year in January. Now we have another COVID extension again. We're going to go into 2022 in season 3 of COVID. But we know that at least the masks are going to be around with us for some time. Thomson Reuters is reporting here that the U.S. is also going to continue the coronavirus pandemic. They're going to extend it. They're extending the pandemic through January 18th so that they can continue to make you wear masks. So yet another mask mandate coming out of Joe Biden's administration, extending this all the way through January 18th of 2022. In a call with the TSA, they talked about this. The current order expires in September. But folks, they're not done with this pandemic yet. There's a lot more that they need to do. And so they're going to extend the pandemic again, more extensions, just like the CDC. And in fact, even the first round of vaccines apparently weren't enough, because now the U.S. is also going to authorize booster shots for the vaccines. AP is reporting here this afternoon that more protection is coming after struggling for months, says the AP from Zeke Miller, to persuade Americans to get the vax. U.S. health officials could soon face a fresh challenge, talking vaccinated people into getting booster shots to gain longer-term protection. Early this week, U.S. health authorities are expected to recommend an extra dose of the vaccine for all Americans 8 months after they get their second shot. According to 2 people who spoke to the AP on condition of anonymity, this means that the biggest vaccine drive in history is about to get even more extensive. You're not done, folks. If you got that vaccine, you aren't done. Hello, you're on the subscription service. You're going to get one every 6 to 8 months. Just shows up, just like Netflix used to. Now we have the means. The move is being driven by both the highly contagious variant and preliminary evidence that the vaccine's effects start dropping within a couple months. That's from the AP. Now, of course, this is not medical information. Please go check with the CDC for official guidance, but this is just speculation from the AP, which is a legitimate news source according to YouTube. On Monday, Pfizer and its partner announced they submitted data to the FDA to support a booster shot for the general public. Pfizer, they studied a small group of people, said that a third dose does help a little bit. They're working on a larger study, though, kind of a small study. Americans who received the earliest doses of Pfizer are approaching the 8-month mark. And so now it's time to sort of see whether it's working or not. There is a concern that the vaccine may start to wane in its effectiveness, and that's why a third shot may be appropriate. And it says here, finally, that the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are administered in 2 doses. And so they're trying to determine what to do about the boosters. And so, back about that subscription service vaccine model, it's a pretty good model if you can get it, because what you do is you get the government to make things mandatory, and you can't engage in the economy unless you follow the rules. And so sort of have a captive market, don't you? It'd be like if I went to a prison and everybody had only one choice for a lawyer. Me, happen to be here. And you have to sign up with me, and you have to pay for me, and it's all just done. And if you don't, well, you're just kind of screwed. You don't get access to any of your liberties anymore. You don't get access to a lawyer unless you take that one. And in fact, if you don't want one, if you want that other lawyer, too bad, you get that one. You don't get any personal choices about it. So the same type of thing is happening in many parts of this country. You have a captive market and you get them into the program. Every time it's time for a little bit of a re-up, a little bit of a boost, you just come and you use that strong arm of the CDC. It's time, everybody. Line up like good little cattle and make sure you go get it. Now, the reason why it might be, fleeting. Some people might say, well, it's because they care about you. They care about your health. They care about grandma. They care about ending this pandemic once and for all. Even though I think the conversation about COVID-0 is not even happening anymore, kind of here to stay. We're going to be dealing with rolling variants, rolling boosters, rolling vaccines, rolling new technologies. Why might that be? Is it about saving lives? Is it about finally putting this stuff to shame, ending the pandemic? Or could it be about something else? Now, I was just poking around some financial numbers here from Moderna, one of the more popular vaccines here in the United States and elsewhere around the country. And we can take a look at some of their numbers. And I am not very smart and sophisticated like NSA advisor Jake Sullivan, who's very educated. I just can only rely on very simple numbers. And so if you go to Google, you can try this right now if you want. You can type in on Google Moderna profits. We'll go through a couple numbers here. You'll notice that if you type that into Google, it pulls up this nice little sheet, nice analysis here. And first and foremost, right, I love profits. I love capitalism. I think that profits are a good thing. I think that free markets are a good thing and they work well. But we're not really talking about a free market here. We're talking about sort of this pseudo government mixture of mandates, CDC requirements. We've got all sorts of weird things happening here. But let's take a look at some of these numbers. We have here, so in September of 2022, we'll take a look at this first column. What Google allows you to do is sort of go this way and check out all the dates up into the present time. So from September to December to March to June. And we're talking about quarterly financial numbers. You'll see that their stock was up 7.4% today when I took this screenshot, up at 400 net right now, which is pretty good. But back in January, we can forget about these stock numbers for now. Back in September of 2020, last year, sort of right in the maybe the climax of the pandemic, right leading up to the election, you'll notice that in September, that quarter, $157 million. $157 million, which is nothing to scoff at, but their net income was minus $233 million. Not doing well as a company. Revenue made 157, net income minus 233. And you say, well, Rob, hello, it's a pharmaceutical company. They're doing all sorts of R&D right now. They're investing everything into building up these vaccines. They're doing all of this complicated mRNA research, blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of work. And it's basically impossible to do this anyways. It's such an accelerated timeline. So of course they're going to be in the red. Okay, that's fine. You maybe sort of acknowledge that. They've got $1.5 billion cash on hand. So they're looking pretty flush. They can easily weather a $233 million loss. They know that they're going to make it up on the back end. They're not hurting. They're not going to go bankrupt. So then we get 1 quarter goes by. We're going to go from September to December, 3 months. And watch what happens to these numbers. We're going to go from revenue of 157 million over to 570 million. Okay, 157, 570 million, and you can look year over year. Just from last year, it's up about 4,000% from 1 year. Now we still see net income is not so good because they're probably still spending some money. Net cash on hand hasn't really changed all that much. It went from 1.5 billion to 1.2 billion, and you can see some profits are still not really good, right? Minus 50% profit margins. Now, also recall on December 20th, this was when the vaccine came out. This is when Joe Biden got it. This is when Kamala Harris got it. And so we're going to see what happens as soon as the vaccine starts hitting the markets. Let's go over to March 2021. And remember, right now in December, we've got 570 million in revenue. 570 million. Now, 1 quarter, fast forward, what does our revenue go to? 1.94 billion. Okay. Now, there's not even enough nines here on the year over year analysis comparison to the year before. It's broken. The analysis is broken. They've made too much revenue. And so we go from 570 million in 3 months over to 1.94 billion. Net income, 1.22 billion, and we have a 63% profit margin on that. 63% profit margin, which is obviously significant. Okay, if you're a small business owner, you know that those margins are ridiculous. Very, very, very good margins, which is why they have a 1.2 billion in net income. So now folks, 3 months go by. So from December to March, we get 3 short months. And then we're going to take a look, another 3 short months, another quarter. And in June, we go from 1.9 billion in revenue all the way up to 4.35. We more than double again in one quarter in June. And remember, we're now going into one final quarter. We'll see what their final numbers look like. 63% profit margin, net income $2.78 billion. Cash on hand, $5.6 billion. Okay, up from a lot. So a lot of money being made there. A lot of incentives to continue this mechanism, isn't it? The subscription model. It works. It's a good model if you can get it. Let's take a look at some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. See if anybody wants to chime in on this topic. We have Sergeant Bob says, it's my favorite mafioso, Al Capone, were alive. I'm a native Chicago guy. He would be all over the COVID card enterprise. Easier than bootlegging booze or running houses of ill repute. Yeah, all you need is a printer, which we know, according to Kamala Harris, that a lot of people of color just don't have access to. Because I'm a white person with white privilege, I've got actually a pretty powerful printer here at our law firm. So, theoretically, I would have access to this, which is very unfair. So I appreciate that, Sergeant Bob. Robert Barnes has a letter on locals. Why are you not getting the shot to give to your boss? Somebody posted that. Don't know who that was. So Robert Barnes, yeah, they've got a community here, a sister community on locals. I think it's vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Go check that out. They got a very vibrant community over there. And so certainly check them out. We've got Want to Know says, you're a business owner. Who pays for training to detect fake cards? What happens if you accept a fake card without knowing if you know? So we don't have that rule in Arizona yet. If they do, I'll have to deal with it when we get there. But you pay for it as the business. That's the point. You've got to get your staff trained up. You've got to get them compliant. If there are any violations, apparently it falls on either the staff support or on the business owner, right? We still don't know what enforcement's going to look like yet because all this stuff is rolling out. But the businesses pay for it. The government doesn't pay for it. They pass the buck to you and us and me. We have Angie says, Israel has 70% of their population vaccinated, and apparently the cases have been rising steadily. The government wants people to get a third jab. Another proof that this madness will never stop. Yeah, once you're on the third one, you're just going to get it delivered. It'll be like a subscription service. Like you get those little boxes delivered to your house, like Amazon. All right. Kareem says, my favorite Star Wars quote, they win by making people think they are alone. We are not alone. Mass non-compliance is the key to end this pandemic. That's from Kareem. I think you're right on that. Legal non-compliance. Legal non-compliance. It's creating friction where they're expecting none. And enough of that, and they'll get the hint. NY says, all of these efforts for mandates are from politicians, not from medical practitioners. Take notice of that. Whether vaccination is an appropriate measure should be an individual decision. It should be based on 1, whether someone has a protective antibodies recovering from COVID. Number 2, whether the risks are outweighed by the benefits. Finally, the booster push is just vapor. Half the FDA panel who approved Pfizer vaccine so far are skeptical about its need. That's according to NY. This is not medical information on this channel. Go check the CDC. If the CDC says take 55 shots and shove them in your eyeballs, you should do that because they're the CDC and that's who YouTube looks to as our Lord and purveyor of the law. We also have Bumalickit says COVID vaccine card. How about basic voter ID? Why is the government pushing the vaccine so much? Getting paranoid. What's with the vaccine? Well, it's the CDC. They say it's everything you need. Everything you need and more in a needle. That's beautiful. Soul Viking says, there aren't 4 lines on the vaccine card for nothing. How many classes of people will they be creating with the unjabbed, previously fully jabbed, and the booster jabbed? I don't know. All sorts of permutations. You're going to have, all of the different variables that somebody's going to have to keep track of. Want to Know says, are bribes a tax deductible expense? I am not a tax lawyer. Don't pretend to be. But no, they're not deductible. Don't bribe anybody. Lorenzo says, I consider myself pretty moderate, but I think these vax passes and COVID restrictions in general are going too far. That's from Lorenzo Greasy Bottoms. Very appropriate, very nice comment there. Thank you, Lorenzo. Says, yeah, they are going to. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. 100% right. Major says, I've said this from the beginning, this annual vaccine is coming. One of my theories is that Big Pharma was losing the flu vaccine argument, had to implement this together to tighten their grasp of control over the American public. It's a good comment, Major. I think you're astute and very observant. We have over here, we've got Go says, so we went from defense contractors to COVID contractors. I'd say all in on Moderna, but I'm apparently late to the game. That's from Ghost. Yeah, if you would have dumped in on the stock market back then, that would have been a good pick. We have Pato says, Robert, this COVID pandemic has started to remind me of the AIDS scare back in the 80s and 90s. People were scared to share drinking fountains, bathrooms, etc. with HIV positive people. Now people are scared to participate in everyday life with unvaxxed people. And we're not even sick, is what he says. It's a great point. I know. And if you're so gung-ho about the vaccines and you love them and you think that they're God's gift to everything and they're going to solve everything and you get it, then what are you so freaked out about what everybody else is doing? Because it's going to save you. Rochelle said so. All right, let's see. Any other questions? I saw a super chat just came in. Eddie Oliver is here, says, under Sharia law, your hand can be cut off for selling fake COVID vaccine cards. The Taliban did nothing wrong. That's from Eddie. Yeah, look, and probably the mask mandates. Well, if you're female, the good news about Afghanistan under the Taliban is you don't have to worry about masks anymore. No more mask mandates there because your entire body is masked up. You have a burqa now, so you don't have to worry about. That's probably why they don't have any COVID in the Taliban. Did you know that the Taliban? Did you see them? They were in the presidential palace. No masks, not a single mask. Why? Why is that? It's probably the burqas. Yeah. I mean, if Joe Biden's going to be double masking and wrapping his entire body in cellophane and bubble wrap, maybe the burqas are next. Maybe those are going to be coming to the United States. Yeah. Rather than two masks, you just have a full body mask. It makes sense. Yeah. Well, apparently none of them are sick because they're just taking over countries left and right. So apparently no problems with that. So maybe they're onto something over there with the Taliban. Doodle Doo says, I think there is another conspiracy afoot with these fakes vax passport cards, maybe even sabotage. What a perfect way to show the public that paper cards aren't trustworthy, paving the way to a biological passport that can be tracked digitally by the government, which will probably be combined with one of these two new booster shots that will be continually required, which will continue pouring money into the pockets of the pharma companies. I've been reading Revelation too much, which is, of course, in the Bible. Maybe I've been burned by a little company called Purdue, and I know personally what these companies will do for money, especially if you take something away called liability. That's from Doodle Doo. Yep, my family got burned by Purdue, too. I made a video about that, the injustice that happened there. They all paid a couple $100 million in fines. Meanwhile, we've got thousands, tens of thousands of dead people in this country because of a pharmaceutical company that was shoving opioids down everybody's mouths and saying that it was perfect. Doctors all over the country were prescribing these things. These are fine for you. Everybody says so. That's why we're just handing them out like Skittles. Guess what happens? You fast forward 20 years and the country is suffering from an opioid epidemic that takes people away from families. I happen to know that from firsthand experience. And where's the liability there? They get slapped with some fines and a couple, modest penalties, nothing really serious. And life goes on because they're part of the upper class. And so, yeah, you might look at Moderna and, some of these other companies with a little bit of skepticism if you have looked around and see how they have treated the American people and people at large in general over the last century or so. A good comment there. That was from Doodle Doo. Saw another one come in from Brian B. Says here, will the Taliban allow Afghanistan women to self-identify as men? It's a good question. Yeah, that's a really complicated one. You'd have to work through that. If they identified as men, I don't think so. I don't think that they would allow them to compete in the Taliban army. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. They're pretty progressive, though. Maybe soon enough they'll get there. I'm not real sure. Brody Z says, what is the end goal to all of this? Compliance? Yeah, I think it is compliance. I think it really is, philosophically, from a very high level. I think it's the system clawing at people from bailing out of the system. They're doing everything they can to stop people from going to crypto, to stop people from leaving the country, to stop people from, becoming non-compliant with the government. As the institutions continue to fail around the country, people are going to start wanting to withdraw from a lot of the traditional societal institutions. They don't want that to happen. So all of this is to keep people locked into the system on a philosophical level, I think is where I'd go with that. It's a great question. Justin F. super chatted, says, I don't understand why the government thinks they can just legislate COVID away on a whim with the vaccine mandates. It's because they're the government. They don't know what else to do. And remember, these people have to solve something, right? It would be impossible for a bureaucrat somewhere to just sit there and not do anything, just to sort of let things play, right? Or to mitigate. Hey, COVID's here. We sort of tried lockdowns. We tried all of these mandates. We tried controlling this thing. Didn't work out very well. So now we're just going to have to live with it, America. Get healthy. Get your vaccine if you want. We're open for business. Get back to work. What would that mean? That would mean that the CDC is sort of done. Fauci's kind of done. Biden is kind of using this issue as a leverage to get a bunch of other garbage passed. If he just says deal with it, that's done. You lose all of that political power. And so the system continues to justify the system. They're going to continue to try to do a bunch of stuff. I don't think it's about actually making COVID go away. I think it's about furthering a political agenda. And they've got a basically endless excuse. They have a credit card with no limit on it. It's COVID. They can run all over the Constitution as they're doing with the CDC and elsewhere. Changed all of the election rules leading up to it, changed what the CDC can do with private property, and the list goes on. It is troubling. But my friends, that is it for the questions on this segment for the day. A lot of great questions, a lot of love and support over there on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. They're chatting away. Farmer's Daughter's over there. TOS Forever. We have Chris John is over there. We have Thunder 7, Cat Crap Fever, along with several others chatting at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Over on YouTube, big shout outs to all the super chats. Thank you so much for all of that extra support here today. Shout outs to Justin F, Brian B. We have Brody Z, Eddie Oliver. Shout outs to Scumpy is my daddy. We've got Brody Z, Eddie Oliver several times. Thank you, Eddie. Soch with a nice one. Patrick, Kelly Selnow, Garp 1966. And many other people chatting away over there. Eddie Oliver with one final one says, our governor just tested positive for COVID today. And you know what? He's not crying like a little wussy. Hashtag Texas proud. Hashtag Texas strong. You know, I'm actually going to be in Texas in like a month, provided that I'm allowed to travel anywhere. But we'll see that. I think I'm going to be in San Antonio there. So it's good to hear from you, Eddie. Sarah Ann also says, how nice to see you. Been a while. Sarah Ann is reconnecting over with us here. That's Sarah Ann, who is with another super chat. So thank you for that. And that, my friends, is it for the show for the day. Got through a lot of material. I really appreciate you all being here and participating in the show. I want to remind you that you can sign up if you want to be a part of it over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Shout out to new supporters over there. ZW Trawl just signed up over on watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Signed up for the year. Looking forward to having you and connecting with you. Also, shout outs to Deadmau5, Ref Fanilator, Juta M-Kit, Daversec, Shifty Shift 503 Unlimited from Portland, and Mary B, along with The Real Patriot. Sign up at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and then you can join us on our next monthly Locals meetup via Zoom, Saturday, August 28th, 2021, 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's just a short hour. It's just a little bit of a meet and greet. Just get to put names to faces. It's a lot of fun. Get to talk about the show. Get to talk about what you're doing in your lives. And it's a good time to build a little bit of the community that we talk so much about here on the show. And so come check that out. Saturday, August 28th, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for the show. We're going to be back here same time, same place tomorrow. We're going to do it all again. There's going to be a lot more to get to. So I want to make sure you're with us. It's at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 5 p.m. Mountain, 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And for that one Florida man, everybody else, have a tremendous evening. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for watching. Before you head out, I want to just remind you that I am a criminal defense lawyer here in Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I We've got a long history of helping good people facing criminal charges to find safety, clarity, and hope in their cases and beyond that in their lives. Our phone number for a free case evaluation is 480-787-0394. You can also find us online at www.rrlawaz.com. We can help with any type of criminal charge in the state of Arizona. Things like DUI, drug offenses, misdemeanor offenses. And we can also help with clearing up old case records, like expunging cases or making sure that you can restore your rights so that you can vote again or possess a firearm again or apply for some other federal benefits. We can remove mugshots off the internet. Basically, anytime that you or somebody you know or love is in trouble with the law in the state of Arizona, we have an amazing team of people. We would just love the opportunity to help. And our phone number, of course, 480-787-0394. And if you don't need any legal services, that's a very good thing. But you may be interested in some informational offerings so that you are prepared if you do have to deal with the police. And of course, I want to invite you to head on over to gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. You'll notice here, I've got several different trainings that are available, including the law enforcement interaction training. This is the 1, 2, 3 rule for dealing with the police. It's one rule you need, 2 questions that the police can ask of you, and 3 responses if they ask you a problematic question. So that's available now. You can also get a load at my personal productivity system here called Existence Systems. Fun little course. And then we have here, if you're a lawyer or a legal professional, be sure to check out this program. We are meeting twice every month. Again, all of this over at gumroad.com/Robert Gruler. And if none of that sounds any good to you, well, just go ahead and give us a follow, because I'm working on some other products and some other offerings. And of course, if you have not already done so, want to invite you one more time to head on over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. It's where you can support the show, and it's where we can connect. We've got monthly Zoom meetings and a lot of other goodies coming up. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for watching and for all of your love and support. I will see you on the next one.